just had this hole inside of me that was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and I needed more and more alcohol to fill it up.
Welcome back to my podcast, One for the Road, and my very special guest today is the lovely Sarah Rusbatch, best-selling author of Beyond Booze and one of the leading voices on grey area drinking, helping women rethink their relationship with alcohol. And if you've ever poured a glass at the end of a long day and told yourself you've earned it, this one's for you. Sarah is one of the most respected voices on grey area drinking, and we're asking the question today nobody really wants to. Is mummy wine culture actually fading in 2026, or has it just changed its clothes? It's an honest conversation, no shame, no rock bottom required. Let's get into it. Hi, Sarah. How are you today?
I'm so good, thanks, Dave. Thank you so much for having me.
It's a joy. And I had the pleasure of joining you on your new podcast recently. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I launched my podcast a couple of months ago now. It's called Stronger, Bolder, Wiser. And it's all about redefining what it means to age as a woman in 2026, because gone are the days where we think that aging is just a downhill sludge into weight gain, tiredness, feeling crap, and everything going to shit. And instead, we are celebrating everything about getting stronger, bolder, and wiser as we age. So it really is all facets of women's health, mental, physical, and emotional as we age. And you came on to talk about all the things that we discover about ourselves when we remove alcohol. And you did actually make me cry, Dave. And not many people do that. So we did have a little moment, didn't we, where we both had a few tears in our eyes. So yes, your listeners definitely need to go and have a listen to that.
Oh, bless you. And it's much needed. And I really respect you in this community as well. You know, you got sober around the same time as me, 2019, didn't you?
Yeah, I think you were the January and I was the April.
Yeah. And yeah, things were quite a bit different back then and it's evolved a lot. But I did a post, was probably 18 months ago, 2 years ago now, discussing mummy wine culture, and I got absolutely slaughtered, like literally. I was interviewing Matt Willis that day and I did the post. So I remember looking at my Instagram and it blew up. And I think you know me by now, I'm never judgmental, and I was just having a discussion about it, but it just sort of landed badly. Do you know what I mean? But I kind of sorted it out the next day, and I apologise if I upset anyone, but it did really trigger a lot of women, you know, and I often work with women now, and to me, in my experience in 2026, mummy wine culture is still huge. So I thought it'd be good to get you on and discuss it. And I've just got a few questions to ask you that I know that you'll be able to cover. And I'm really looking forward to this. So thank you so much for joining me today.
You're so welcome. I'm super excited to go into this because it's a topic that I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, brilliant. Right. So the first question that I've got for you is, in 2026, is mummy wine culture actually fading, or has it just changed clothes?
It's a great question. I still see it everywhere. I live in Australia now. I'm from the UK and I live in Australia. We've just had Mother's Day at the time of recording this. And everywhere that you looked, you saw Mother's Day cards and gifts that were focused around alcohol. There's a pajama shop in Australia. I'm not going to name names. And every year they do it. And every year I do my standard video where I go in there and I hold up me with a pair of pajamas that are covered in wine bottles. And they have these mannequins in the window where the mannequin is representing a mother who's covered in pajamas that are covered in wine bottles. She's got a turban on her head like she's just had a shower. She's got this pink dressing gown on. And in one hand, she's holding a bottle of wine. And in the other hand, she's holding a glass. And she's wearing these pajamas covered in wine bottles. And I just think all those little girls that are seeing that messaging and going, oh, that's what mum needs to be a mum. Like, mumming is so hard that she needs to have alcohol. So yes, it's still everywhere. And I'm pretty sure, like, knowing the women in my community, that it is as prevalent still in the UK, because alcohol sells, wine sells, and that's all they're interested in, is the bottom line is money.
It really is. And I remember interviewing a lady on my podcast discussing marketing back in the day when, do you remember the Wicked Blues were out? And, all used to sort of take the mickey out of the colour of our tongue. And they targeted that at kind of the teens. And then listening to her speaking in her job role, that they then went to the next level and targeted late teens with the pink gins, different coloured gins. And it's disgusting, really, isn't it? It really highlighted how bad it is, really.
Yeah. So when I was researching my book, Beyond Booze, I have a chapter in there talking about how have we got to this place where women are, and there's no judgment here because I did this for years, but using alcohol as a way to unwind, a way as a reward at the end of the day. And so I dove deep into this, and like what I discovered really did blow my mind in terms of understanding that 30 years ago, the alcohol industry, up until that point, all of their advertising and marketing had been just one type of advertising. Most of it was geared towards men in sport. And they sat down and they went, what demographic are we missing? Where are we not making enough money? And that was where they decided to, for the first time, segment their marketing and have different types of marketing campaigns for different types of products, create products that were specifically geared towards young girls, like teenage girls and young women, as well as more older women. And they created pink drinks, they created alco pops, and then the advertising campaign began. And it has been relentless, it's been direct, it's been specific ever since, with the messaging: mum needs wine, women need wine, it's your reward, it's your relaxing, it's what you need to get through the day, it's what you deserve. And I feel like we've all fallen for it hook, line and sinker, because you don't need to tell us twice that we've had a hard day, that we've been juggling 50 million things, and that we want something that gives us an instant switch off. And there's no denying that alcohol works.
Yes, exactly that, isn't it? So walk me through the moment a normal mum becomes a grey area drinker without even noticing it.
I think it's really subtle. It's really insidious. And it starts off, I'm 50, so I grew up in the UK in the 90s, where there was this real movement of girl power. There was the Spice Girls, there was Sex and the City. There was, this time in our lives where women were independent, they were making their own money, and alcohol was playing a big part in who we identified as being. So alcohol at that point was what we did to socialize. Then we all grew up and we might have become mums and we had kids and we had proper jobs and had to be responsible and all the rest of it. So our alcohol morphed from something we did to get rat-assed with our mates on a Friday night to what we were doing at home. And we thought, because we were drinking more sophisticated wine, that it was less problematic, and we had our nice wine glasses and we were doing it at home. And it just started off as, I'll just have a glass of wine to take the edge off. But the problem about alcohol is that we build tolerance to it. So what used to just be the one glass that gave enough of a buzz, then it becomes two, then it becomes three. And it's really subtle and it's really insidious how it just starts to creep up. And, before we know it, most of the women I work with are drinking a bottle of wine most nights. Several have tipped over to opening the second bottle. And you can't even pinpoint the moment when it happened. It's just been this graduation, because your body is adapting to the alcohol, so you need more to get the same buzz. And meanwhile, you've got less and less resilience to deal with whatever's happening in your life, because you've been outsourcing your entire nervous system regulation to alcohol for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. And so then stopping feels impossible.
And do you know what, Sarah? I still get people come to me now off the back of lockdown, which was 6 years ago, because that was honestly so bad, wasn't it? Where we had almost like the holiday vibe. And I remember in the March, it was really hot. And I think there was an app called House Party or something. Like, it was a social media thing. And there were people posting sunbathing with a glass of wine at midday. Why not? It's 12 o'clock somewhere in the world and whatnot, I remember we kind of got Zoom coming in. We didn't really know a lot about it then, did we? But Zoom meetings where we were working from home. And I know of people that were blowing into a mug, pretending it was hot tea and it's actually wine. And then 6 months, a year later on, they're getting cravings at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when they're back to work. And it's still really rife now as well. Do you notice that?
Totally, loads. So, as I said before, I'm based in Australia, and Melbourne was the most locked down city in the world. And people in Melbourne were only allowed out of their homes for an hour a day for months and months and months, and maybe even over a year. And so I'm still now will have people contact me and go, my drinking massively increased during lockdown, and I've just never got on top of it since. And so that definitely played a part in exacerbating what was already there.
Absolutely. So we talked earlier about, the pajamas and that, and humour is a shield, isn't it? Why do you think our drinking's always wrapped in a joke? Is that like denial, do you think?
Yeah, I think it's partly denial. I think it's our way of being able to tell ourselves it's not a problem.
Mm,
And but also the alcohol industry and the government, well not the government, but like the way that they endorse and allow this to happen is it's just made to look innocent. Like of course you have a beer at a barbecue, of course you have a wine at a christening or a first birthday party, or and now you get pilates and prosecco, and you do a marathon and you get a beer at the end. Like all of these kind of relationships have started to develop as to what scenario has alcohol present, and because it's so prolific you normalize it, and then you laugh about it, because what else do you do if you don't laugh? Then you're saying it's a problem, and nobody
yeah.
wants to be the one to stick their head above the parapet and go, this isn't right, this apart from you and me, right? And so most people won't do that, and so then you've got to go along with it.
Yeah, I remember watching an interview on the telly about 3 months, it's probably 6 months ago now, like making a huge thing about banning vaping, right? And there's a couple of members of the government there. And I was thinking then, why does no one talk about booze, right? They never do. And I think the Houses of Parliament are the most subsidised bar in the whole of the UK, you know.
That's
But why is that never talked about?
money.
Yeah.
Money, money, money. I think um, Catherine Gray, who wrote the book The Unexpected Joy of Being Sober, she wrote a second follow-up book. I can't remember the name of it, but she uncovers a lot in that book about
Mm.
what has happened, particularly in the UK, with regards to the money that is made through alcohol sales. And so there isn't a huge driver to create that change. And we talk about this a lot. You and I have spoken about this. The onus is always put on the person. So we know from Professor David Nutt, he says alcohol is the fifth most addictive substance in the world. And yet every single label says drink responsibly, drink in moderation, as if it's that person, it's their
Yeah.
responsibility to be able to moderate. So everything is put on the person and nothing is put onto the responsibility of the product. And I mean, there was a switch with cigarettes, and so who knows if that will ever happen with alcohol, but I suspect not, given the amount of money that comes from the alcohol industry.
But I think Ireland, and I did hear Australia are talking about changing the labelling, which I think is really important because, you see on a packet of fags someone wired up to a machine and pictures of lungs and whatnot. And, I've interviewed some people who've had liver transplants and they've sent me photographs of what they look like, when they had jaundice and after the operation and that. And I think that could be a really powerful visual for people to see on a bottle.
Yeah, I had a big argument with a guy on the radio not that long ago, because he was going, but there are labels on alcohol. It says don't drink while pregnant and breastfeeding, and I'm like, yeah, and that's it. And he goes, but what else is the danger? And I'm like, well, alcohol causes 7 types of cancer. It's directly in women responsible for breast cancer in many cases. And it has, many, many other impacts. So people need to know that. And so, yes, the Irish are going to be the first country to have labels, go the Irish, on their
Yeah.
products that say alcohol is a carcinogen and can cause cancer.
Yeah. And we rarely talk about, outside of our kind of discussions, about the 3 a.m. anxiety it causes, right? So we all know that we get a dopamine hit from the thought of having a drink. It's not the initial first drink. We get one before that, don't we? When we think, oh, do you know what? I've had a really bad day. I've had a good day. I've had an any old day. I can have a drink tonight. And automatically you get a dopamine hit. And I remember talking to this lady actually, and she made this sort of kind of rule with herself, with the universe. And she said to me, she goes home past the little Tesco's Express place on the way home. And she said, if there's a parking space outside, the universe is saying I should have a drink tonight. And if there isn't, I shouldn't. And I said, so how many times you go around the roundabout? And she went, yeah, you know, it's like spinning a coin, isn't it? Heads or tails, heads, or best out of 5 then. Do you know what I mean? And,
Totally,
you know,
totally.
so you get the short-term effect, and you felt rubbish all day, tired, listless, not concentrating. 3 or 4 o'clock comes, and all of a sudden you sort of kind of, oh, I could have one tonight. You promise yourself you're not going to have more than that. And we know where that goes, right? And then the 3 a.m. doom of staring at the ceiling. And, you know, this needs to be talked about more, because blokes, I find, not all blokes, I'm not generalizing here, but I remember, based on my experience, when I was in the car pits, I would get in the van and probably brag about watching the football and, God, I had a skinful last night. Jesus, did you see the game in that? But women, they go in the playground, they're not going to say, oh, do you know what? I drank 2 bottles of wine last night. You know, so it's there's a lot of shame involved in it as well, isn't there? And regret.
Yeah, there is. And, you know, the complications for women come in because we know there's research that was done. I interviewed Anne Dowsett Johnson, who wrote the book Drink, the intimate relationship between women and alcohol. And she said, the research shows stereotypically men are more likely to drink to enhance a good time. So they're socializing, they're out with their mates, and they're going to drink, you know, to really enhance that. Women are more likely to drink to escape their life. And I mean, that just makes me sad in itself.
Mm.
And I don't know if you've come across a lot of Gabor Mate's work, but in his book, The Myth of Normal, he talks a lot about women being the shock absorbers of society. We've got these 4 character traits that are inherent in women of putting other people's needs before our own. We suppress healthy anger. We don't feel confident to express our needs. We put everyone else's needs first. And as a result of that, we're juggling so much. We're often people pleasing. We are thinking about everybody else, and we've got nothing left for ourselves. And the thing about alcohol is it's there at the end of the day, and you can drink your wine whilst you're unloading the dishwasher, you're peeling the potatoes, you're helping with the homework, you're cleaning down the bench. But at least I've got a glass of wine in my hand, you know? And so women are just drinking to get that slight buzz in either the monotony of their daily life, because of the stress and overwhelm in their daily life, because women are working more than they ever have before, but they're still carrying the lion's share of everything that has to be done in the home, and child rearing, and the emotional load of dealing with kids and teenagers and everything like that. And we just need a break. But the break often isn't there and isn't apparent to us in any other way than a bottle of wine. And so then you say to your WhatsApp mums group, oh, I've had a shitty day. And the first response is, go and have a glass of wine.
Mm.
And so we're kind of perpetuating this normalization that alcohol is the solution to all of the stuff that's really, really hard to manage. And that's what I teach in all of my programs for women is, let's actually look at what we can really do to help relax our bodies and to give ourselves some joy and some fun in our life, instead of just running around after everyone else all the time.
Yeah, I really agree with that. Excuse me. And a lot of us overcompensate these days, don't we? You know, that's what I find. And a lot of us are people pleasers and put ourselves last. And our reward is that drink at the end of the day. We're running around doing full-time jobs, running around. And we talk more about emotions these days with kids, don't we? Back in my
Yeah.
era, you know, it was never a conversation about how are you feeling today. like, but there's a lot more knowledge around mental health. And I think with social media now and everything, you know, we're all really overwhelmed. And of course, we know that when we have a drink, it switches that off. And it's also the reward factor, isn't it, of something to look forward to at the end of it. But why do you think or I'll reframe that question actually. Do you think it's hard for a mum or a woman to admit they have a problem with drink?
Yeah, I do, because I don't think many of us identify as having a problem. I would never have said I had a problem because I didn't, in my mind, a problem was Sue Ellen in Dallas who had to go to rehab. You know, like I hadn't seen the only problematic drinking in a woman I'd ever seen was someone with severe alcohol use disorder. So someone that's drinking hard liquor all day, every day. And I wasn't doing that. So therefore I was like, well, I can't have a problem. And so I think that the first part of this, and that's where grey area drinking is such a helpful discussion point to be able to go, I don't have severe alcohol use disorder. I don't label myself an alcoholic. I don't have to drink in the morning. I'm not physically dependent on alcohol, but I am a grey area drinker and I do have emotional dependence on alcohol. And because there's not much language around that, I think that the first issue is that most women don't identify as having a problem, so therefore they don't seek help. And then they carry the shame internally because they're like, oh, I know I want to drink less, but I can't. And so that must be my fault because society says drink less, drink in moderation. You know, and so you think, oh, it's my willpower. I'm a failure. I'm weak. And so then you get this negative self-talk that's constantly going, oh, I said I wasn't going to drink last night and I had a bottle of wine and now it's Tuesday morning and I drank on a Monday and I never drink on a Monday. God, I'm shit. I'm terrible. I'm definitely not drinking tonight. And then it's 5 o'clock and you're in the same pattern and then you're reaching for a drink. And that just drives more shame, more self-loathing, and more secrecy around how we're actually feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, I relate to that. And I always used to say that I've got a thing about lying. I can't stand lying or people that lie to me, right? Yeah, I lied to myself and other people when I was drinking. I've morphed into this person I didn't even know he was, like hiding gin. Like I hate gin, but I was given a litre of gin for Christmas by a client and I hid it in my office under the desk and was swigging out of that, and it was vile, but it had content in it. Do you know what I mean? And it just turned me into this person that I didn't know. And I think that's where the shame comes in, doesn't it? And why perhaps all of us in general, we struggle with having that conversation, men or women, is like admitting that there's a problem. Because I remember I've spoken about it before when I was a guest on a podcast, the day I was down the local pub and someone literally called me out and said, Dave, you're an alcoholic. Because I started doing the whole session on a Sunday. I would go in there on 12 o'clock when the bolt would come down on the door, be the first one in the pub and the last one to leave. And families would come and go. They would come in at 12 and have a one drink and some roast potatoes on the bar, and then come back at 7 for one drink. And I'd still be in there, but obviously drunk. And this guy said to me, mate, are you an alcoholic? And I was like, what are you talking about? I like a couple of beers, and I was probably on my 12th pint. And it was like, then I thought, am I? That's when I started Googling it. And the typical thing that come up was the kind of the dependent morning drinker and stuff like that. But what you talk about with the grey area drinking, which we both trained in, is there's such a middle lane, isn't there, of not dependent. You might not drink all week, but you could binge at the weekend, or, you might just have a couple of glasses of wine. But that in itself, home pouring is 2 large glasses of wine, which is 3/4 of a bottle of wine a night, every night. But the way we frame it is like, it's only a couple of glasses of wine with dinner, or, I stop after that. So it kind of justifies we haven't got a problem, doesn't it?
Yeah, totally. And I think that's what keeps so many people stuck is we're not being completely honest or realistic about how much we're drinking. And then, like you say, we're keeping in silence about the impact it's having on us. Like on to the outside world, no one thought I had a problem because I was happy, Sarah. I was the party girl. I was always the one that was bubbly and this, that, and the other. But inside, my anxiety was just developing more and more, becoming more and more chronic. And I was just so unhappy. And it was like I just had this hole inside of me that was just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I needed more and more alcohol to fill it up. And slowly but surely, once I removed the alcohol, that hole just shrank and shrank and shrank because I actually created a life that I loved where I didn't need the alcohol. And that's the work, right? The work is
Yeah.
not drinking. The work is creating a life where you don't need to drink.
That's the hard part often. And,
Yeah.
on your episode, we had a conversation about it, didn't we? That I look at it like the nuts and bolts of stopping drinking is to learn how not to drink. But after that, there's a whole new level of learning how to fit into society that is so kind of, it's just mad. Like when you think it's literally everywhere. I went past a supermarket yesterday, which was set back off the road. And on the railings on the main road, there were all these banners about all the drinks offers, like buy 6 bottles of wine, get 25% off, buy 24 cans of this, you get 20% off and that. And you're sitting in traffic and it's this drip feed stuff.
Yeah.
When you walk in the supermarket, it's like you're hit. Do you remember in the old days, they banned having sweets at the till because kids would always like, mummy, mummy. But yet you walk in the supermarket and you're hit with a barrage of alcohol as soon as you walk in the door, especially around Valentine's, Easter, summer with the barbecues. It's just rife, isn't it?
And I can, at the time that we're recording this, it's the World Cup. So I can only
Yeah.
imagine what England is like right now because they're not like that over here in Australia because they don't sell alcohol in supermarkets. So
No.
you're only legally allowed to sell alcohol in a off license. So we don't, at least we don't have the alcohol in the supermarkets because it always jars me when I come back home to the UK and I'll go to like, Sainsbury's or Tesco, and I'm like, fucking hell, I forgot that there's just alcohol
Yeah.
everywhere. And
Yeah.
so, you just go into the shops to buy your broccoli and your apples, and you're having to come face to face with alcohol. At least you don't have that here.
Yeah, so you've got bottle shops out there, which I suppose they're equivalent of our off licenses, right? So why is that?
I don't know. I guess the government has a law that you can't sell alcohol in a supermarket. You can only legally sell alcohol in an off license, which I think
Yeah.
is good.
Does that restrict it, do you think, or not?
Now, I tell you what's interesting about Australia is you cannot buy alcohol in small amounts. Like your local like shop in the UK, you can just go buy a can of Foster's or you can buy
Yeah.
a can of lager, or whereas over here you can't buy a single one like that in a shop. You buy a carton, which is 24 bottles or 24 cans, or you buy a six pack. But a six pack, you're so heavily penalised financially for buying a six pack that it doesn't make sense. You're always better off buying the carton because it works out so much more efficient financially. So they're kind of driving this home drinking, because if you buy a carton and it's just sitting at home, you're just going to drink it, right? So it shouldn't be that you're so penalised for buying small amounts. It should be you can buy, if you want to just have one can, you can just go and get one can, and so it's interesting over here.
Kind of doesn't make sense because everyone that I talk to in Australia, there's a huge problem out there with boozing. I don't know if it's the climate as well. But I mean, I don't know if that changes anything because I know in the winter people sort of nestle down, don't they? Light the fire or put the telly on and have a glass of wine at 5 o'clock. I don't know. It's an interesting conversation that we could have another time. But social media built mummy wine culture. Do you think it could be the thing that ends it?
Oh, I think we've gone too far now. I think that social media absolutely created mummy wine culture. But that was back in the day where social media was not full of adverts. Whereas now social media is pretty much just, it's all meta advertising, right? But back then, those funny memes that used to go around, you don't see them so much now. But back in the day, it was, oh, my doctor said I could only have one glass of wine, so that's what I'm doing. And it would be a picture of a mum holding one of those glasses that holds an entire bottle and going, ha, 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 look, I'm just having one glass. And you used to like forward that onto all your friends and go, ha, ha, ha. And so you were kind of, you were doing the marketing for alcohol on their behalf for free because you were just constantly sharing that stuff. And that was just a real moment in time when social media was just coming into its own. I don't think it's quite the same now, but I do think it's just simply being created as a culture now, that is what women have been led to believe is the norm. It's what we do to relax, to switch off, to socialize, to our reward at the end of the day, because alcohol is this double whammy. You're getting this hit of dopamine that hits the reward center of the brain, so it gives you a buzz, and it also gives you a hit of GABA, which is your nervous system depressant that makes you feel calm and relaxed. Now, you tell me a woman that doesn't want a substance that at the end of a mental day, when she's still got the whole evening to do and cooking dinner and cleaning up and sorting the kids and doing homework and all the rest of it, that doesn't want something that's going to give her a wee buzz and a bit of calm at the same time. And I don't think there's anything else that does that in quite the same way as alcohol. And that's why it's really hard to break that habit if it is just a habit, because there's very few things, if anything at all, that's going to give you those two things at once. Like sugar, yeah, we know lots of people when they ditch booze, they swap it for sugar, and that gives you the dopamine hit, but it doesn't give you the calm, relaxing feeling that alcohol does at the same time. So it is hard to, and that's where the work is, in finding what those things are for you to keep the dopamine levels high, and then to find the ways to actually increase your GABA so that you're not so deficient that you're craving alcohol as a way to switch off at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's difficult, right? And you said a habit, but I still believe there's a certain dependence there, because otherwise you would just stop it. Do you know what I mean? And it's really hard to adjust your nervous system like that. But like, how did you do it when you stopped drinking? Because you're 7 years sober plus now, right? What were the first few months like for you?
So there was a couple of things. By the time I stopped completely, I'd done two stints of 100 days, and I'd done several dry July, sober October type things. So by the time I stopped, I knew I'd done enough experimentation to know two really important things. And those things changed my life. And those two important things were, number one, I can't moderate. I just can't. I've fucking tried for so many years to moderate and I can't. And number two, everything in my life is better when I don't drink. But I needed to do the back and forth for 2 years that I did to know in my bones, yeah, those two facts are true. So as an educated woman who's got this information here, I need to make a decision about my life. I know I can't moderate, so trying to just have one is never going to work because I've tried that for 2 years. And I know my life is better when I don't drink. So what the hell am I doing trying to keep alcohol in? So that was when I made that full decision. That's it, I'm done. And there was a couple of things I did. So number one, exercise was 100% like a non-negotiable for me to keep that dopamine high, because when you are getting effort-based dopamine, you don't crave the artificial dopamine because you're getting the actual natural dopamine that you need from exercise. So I signed up for a half marathon. I quit in the April, the half marathon was the October, and I just had 6 months of following a plan. And what that was doing, I didn't know it at the time, but knowing now what I do about the brain and about dopamine, I was getting natural sunlight. I was running outside 4 or 5 times a week. I was doing strength training. I was getting endorphins. I was getting dopamine, and that was making me feel good. So I had that. Second thing I did was GABA. So I knew that I needed to do things to calm my nervous system. I'm a Pisces. I love water. I had a bath pretty much every night at 5 o'clock. So I set up my day so that dinner was either prepped before 5. My kids were still quite young at the time, so that I could put them in front of the telly for half an hour and I could get out in the kitchen at 5 o'clock because that was my trigger time. And I would have a bath. And a bath always resets me. It's just like that thing that just calms me. It soothes me. Friday night at 5 o'clock, I signed up every week to a body attack class. And it was like hardcore house music in a group situation where you're dancing around this room, doing exercises and hands in the air and legs in the air and press ups and jump ups. And you feel so freaking great at the end of it. So 5 o'clock Friday, I signed up, and that was my non-negotiable. So it's putting into place what are the things that I know work for me to support me because I'd had practice by this point. And that's why, a lot of people, like, they take a break and then they go, oh, I failed, I had a drink again. And it's like, it's never a failure. But you're just learning all the time. And so when I finally stopped for good, I was able to pull on all the information from all of those attempts in the past to actually build my operating system of this is what's going to work for me.
Yeah, I love that. Did you hit a point though, maybe 6 months in, that you've cracked all that and all of a sudden you wondered who the hell you were?
Oh, for sure. For sure. And the biggest thing for me was I was bored
Yeah.
because my life had been chaotic. Like, chaos was what I'd grown up with and what I had created when there wasn't any, because that was where I was comfortable. So the work I've had to do over the last 6.5, 7 years has been, my line of contentment is now not boring. It's actually where I crave to be. And so that was the work that it was for me, was recognizing that I wanted the calm and the contentment. Now, I'm still a dopamine junkie. I'm still a bit of a nutter. I still love going and doing things that just, are a bit mental. And that's always going to be in me. But I can go dancing now. I can go to concerts. I've just run London Marathon. I will still do the things that make me feel really good in my body. But it's just learning what they are for each of us.
Yeah. And what about your social circles? Because I was talking to someone the other day, and her little one's starting school, and there's a lot of mummies that are making new friends and already talking about, 9 o'clock and stuff. And she feels really, really under pressure. And she's newly sober. She's been sober 3 months now, and she's really worried about what they're going to think of her, if she's going to get left out of things, what she tells them. What advice could you give there?
Look, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's hard. Like, I remember a mum came to my house to drop off her son for a play date with my son. And she was like, oh, we should catch up sometime. And I was like, yeah, definitely. She was like, oh, do you drink wine? And I was like, oh, no, I don't drink. And her face, it just dropped. And she was just like, ah, oh, okay. Yeah. Well, anyway, and then I remember another mum at the school gate saying to me, oh, are you drinking again yet? And I was like, no, I'm still off it. She's like, oh, well, let's catch up when you're drinking again.
Yeah.
And I was just like, well, we can still catch up now. So it is about remembering that we've got to stay true to ourselves. And that's why community is so important when we're going on this path of changing our drinking, that we keep some people in our pocket. And a lot of, that's why I run these online challenges for women, because they create incredible bonds and connection, which is online, because they might not have any friends in their immediate social, physical circle that are not drinking. So it can feel really freaking lonely at the start, but slowly but surely that does start to change. But I would say to, like, for the lady listening who's going, well, I know I don't want to drink, but I don't want to be the pariah who doesn't have any friends and doesn't, like, no one wants to be with. So I would just go along to those events, have an alcohol-free beer. You don't have to say you're not drinking, just say I'm not drinking tonight, and just don't make a big thing about it. And also suss out, who are the people that you like? Do you actually think that there is going to be a deeper connection there? Yeah. Or are they women that just would have been your mates if you were drinking a bottle of wine with them, but actually you don't really like them that much?
Yeah, you've got to have your boundaries, right? And if you look at the pie chart of your life outside of these social interactions, the bigger part is how you show up for yourself, for your family, for your kids, for your job, your mental health, how you're sleeping. Like, I always remember when I was drinking, I was watching the, I think the athletics, and there was 100 meters final, and I was looking at all these athletes thinking, I wonder how it would feel to step inside one of their bodies now, to feel how good they feel right now. And now it's the reverse. I think, I wonder how it'd feel to step back into my body 8 years ago, of waking up at 3 a.m. after drinking a litre of vodka, knowing that I've got work in the morning, a heavy day, probably a 10-hour day. I'd have to drive. And one of my things was, I never drink and drive, but every morning I would step into that van and be over the limit, face customers wondering if they would clock on that I look hungover or I reeked of booze. Um, and I look now 7.5 years later, and everything has changed for me. And you say the same as that. And I always say to people, you've got to give yourself an opportunity, right? And you've got to adapt to situations. So social situations, I often say, have that conversation with them so it's two-way and say, look, you don't have to disclude me because I'm not drinking. I'm fine. And if I don't feel comfortable in the situation, I'll let you know. But please don't take me out of it, because half the time people don't know what to say to us when we're stopping drinking. You know, they make their own assumptions and they say, oh, well, they're not drinking. They probably want to come to that anyway. And we might want to come for an hour and then clear off
Yeah.
after that. So I think having a two-way conversation is really good. And you could frame it however you want. I mean, for me, I remember that me saying I'd stop forever really helped me, because I had to make it non-negotiable. I had to end that relationship right there and then. There was no, well, let's see how it goes. But I know for other people that feels too much. So you could say, do you know what? I'm on a bit of a health kick at the moment, and I'm eating really well, having some early nights, and I'm knocking the booze on the head for a month or so. And in a month, you can say, do you know what? I feel great. I'm going to do another month, and it could work that way as well. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah. And I always say, like, and I've got a whole chapter in my book about this. It's like, be selective over who you want to tell your truth to, and who's the inner circle. And I always think about friendships as being like, if you think about it as being shelf, right? There's a shelf in your pantry. Top shelf might be your closest friends that know you the best. So there's probably not many of them. There's maybe two or three. And then you've got the next couple of shelves that might be people that you socialize with, but they're not super close. And then you've got maybe the bottom shelf, which is acquaintances. You might see them at kids' sport on a Saturday or whatever. So choose appropriate responses depending on who those people are. But
Yeah,
your top shelf friends, you want to make sure that they know you. You want to make sure that they support you, that you can say to them, please invite me. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable drinking around me. I don't give a shit if you drink. I'm just doing this for me. It's not about you. I support you making it, because people often think that you're judging them if you're not going to be drinking. And so it's really important to do that. And then I always say, with the bottom shelf and middle shelf friends, it's okay to kind of say a white lie if you want to. I'm on antibiotics. I'm training for a triathlon. Like, whatever it is that just brushes the conversation away, so that you're not under the spotlight anymore as to why you're not drinking, and just move on. So, it's about having those boundaries with people that don't deserve or need to know the truth, but then also letting in the people that do, because too often we carry shame maybe around our drinking, or the fact that we're stopping, or we feel guilty. Like, I have so many women who say to me, I feel like I'm letting my friends down, because the thing about grey area drinkers is we tend to surround ourselves with other grey area drinkers, and so then our friends are probably problematic drinkers in some way as well, and then they feel like we're shining a light
yeah,
on their drinking, and maybe we're judging them. And so it's really important just to make sure they know, I'm doing this for me, it's not
yeah,
about you.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was in a situation once where a friend was meeting me, and I'd had 3 bottles of strong cider, and he turned up and then confessed that he'd stopped drinking, and I went mad. I'm being honest. I ripped into him like, "What's the point of you meeting me?" And he said, "Well, I like you. I want to see you and spend time with you." So, and now I
Yeah,
understand that. But what that did for me was, oh shit. I'm already on my way now. I'm going to have to rein in my drinking. That's ruined my whole
totally.
night now. So I do understand he shone the mirror on me and my drinking then, which wasn't his responsibility.
Yeah. Oh, I can remember a friend saying to me, we were going out for my birthday, and I was planning this whole all day beach drinking session. And she said, oh, I'm not going to drink at your birthday. And I said to her, well, I don't want you to come if you're not drinking.
Yeah,
Like, that was my response. I was like, you're not coming to my birthday if you're not drinking. Because to me, that just meant she was boring, she was no fun. But that was on me, not on her. I had a problem with alcohol, and my perception was you can't have fun without alcohol.
yeah.
And now I know that's not true.
No, I know. And you know what you were saying about, being transparent with friends and that. I think it's also important to be, if you're in a relationship, be transparent with your partner as well, because what quite often happens is you go on this huge journey of recovery and you're getting a lot of pats on the back, and you get into fitness and health and meditation and breath work and healthy eating, apart from the sugar monster. And quite often the partner can feel left out. So they've had years maybe of you drinking, and then all of a sudden you're on this new campaign. And I always say, like, just include them and check in with them as well. Just say, how is my sobriety for you? Like, is there anything you need to know? Is there anything I can do to support you? Like, because often they say, well, what do our weekends look like now? And they might not be big drinkers at all. They might just like a couple of drinks at a weekend with a meal or whatnot, and take it or leave it. But I think it's also important that we include them in that, my favorite word, journey.
Journey,
Hey,
yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, look, I think there's always a period of adaptation on both sides. And I know a lot of ladies will be like, fuck, I'm not drinking. And now there's this big disconnection between us and we're going to separate and it's all going to be awful. And it's like how it is at the start is not how it is forever. And so you're both getting used to it. And you don't know what's going to happen over the next 6 months or 12 months. Your partner might stop drinking. They might massively cut down. They might drink more. And you might realize, actually, I don't want to be married to you anymore. Like, so many different things can happen. And that can feel a bit scary because
Yeah,
the brain likes to always know what is going to be happening. And when you don't know what that is, that feels like danger and that feels like threat to our brain.
yeah,
So it's just going, I've just got to be with the here and now. And the best thing that we can do is have open communication and just be talking to each other. And as you say, asking them, how is it for you, me not drinking? What can we make sure we're still doing to have moments of connection
yeah,
outside of the alcohol? Because the way that my husband and I always connected was with alcohol. He came home from work. I heard his truck pulling into the driveway. I went and got my wine. And then we went and sat outside, we had a drink and we talked about the day. And then I stopped drinking. So I didn't want to sit with him while he was having a beer. So I was out walking the dog or doing whatever. And then slowly but surely we got further and further apart because we weren't keeping that ritual of connection. And then we went to couples therapy and the therapist was like, well, what are you doing now that you're not drinking together? And we were like, oh, nothing. And
yeah.
so it's really important that you keep something there as those little moments of connection.
It's so important, honestly. And we change, don't we? But we change for the better. And this is what I always say to people, like, wind your life forward a year. Where do you want to be in a year's time? How do you want to feel? How do you want your relationship to look like? Do you know what I mean? Like,
Totally.
I think it's quite a powerful visual, actually, because when that guy suggested to me that I join him for 3 months, I initially thought, no, I can't do 3 days. But that day, I remember pondering throughout the day, thinking, I wonder what my life would look like in 3 months if I did stop drinking. I wonder what my weight would be like, my relationship, my mental health, my energy levels, because I was always knackered constantly. And do you know what? By the end of the day, I felt really excited. And this is what I suggest to people that come to me for help is like, just visualize your life. Most people that come to me in their late 40s, early 50s and that, and it's like a life-changing kind of landmark, isn't it? Hitting 50. I remember for me, weren't even allowed in this club. When I was working on 60-Minute Makeover, I had a big party for my birthday in London, and I got so drunk that we tried to get into this club, and they wouldn't let me in at 50 years old. And it was a
Yeah.
real punch in the stomach for me the next day. It's like, oh my God, like what? I remember I had a lovely white shirt on, I had red wine all over it, and it was carnage. But
Yeah.
I think, and you can give me your thoughts on this as well. One of the things that I struggled with at the beginning was going from chaos to calm, as you said earlier. Right. If you think of a line going up and down really rapidly from the lows in the morning and the depression and the anxiety to the dopamine you get at 5 o'clock, nothing's level, is it? And when you stop drinking, there's a kind of transition you have to go through. And that is what I say when there's an acronym HALT: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. But I always put an OB on the end: overwhelmed and bored. It was like, oh my God, I don't know how to sit with normality of paying the bills on time, knowing what I said the night before. And that can come across as actually, oh my God, I've had to grow up all of a sudden. And I was drinking for 40 years and still acting like a bloody teenager. And that was one of the things I struggled with, was being responsible. But when I look at it now, all I crave is calm because I've got used to it. But there is a transition, isn't there?
Yeah. It's interesting. I was on a podcast yesterday, actually, and we were talking about this and how many people I know in their 50s who are still drinking like we did in our 20s. They're still doing Coke every weekend. They just don't want to grow up. And I do think that there is a lot of that, particularly for our generation, where we grew up in this real hedonistic time where, it was the era of dance music, and I was well into that, and all that recreational drug scene, and going and getting off your heads and loving everybody, and, going out on a Friday night and coming back on a Sunday morning, and you just went to these wild parties, and it was so hedonistic. And it's exciting compared to being at home, raising the kids, paying the bills. And so we're trying to find some way to still replicate some of that excitement. But the thing that we have to remember as we get older, it takes its toll more and more. And I always say to my ladies when we're going through our challenge is, let's just think about what percentage is good and what percentage is bad when it comes to your drinking. And what used to start for me was 80% good and 20% a bit shit, and nothing that a bacon sandwich and a paracetamol didn't fix the next day. And slowly but surely that scale starts to tip, and then it becomes 20% good and 80% anxiety, poor sleep, low mood, depression, worrying about what you've said, feeling unhappy, feeling miserable, got no energy, no motivation, no productivity. And when that happens, we need to be smart and we need to make a call. Okay, is this the direction I want my life to go in? And there's a period of adjustment, and there's a period of going, well, I'm a grown up now, and I'm not going out on a Friday night not knowing what time I'm going to get home. And there's a level of acceptance that needs to come with that. But then you realign and you start to find joy and happiness in so many other places that often were there all along. It's just you didn't know that was where you could find it.
Yeah, they're buried. But the other thing I often say as well, just try not to compare yourself to other people. Quite often I hear, I wish I was like them. Right. But we don't know what them are like, because a lot of people I talk to go home and there's a bottle of wine hidden in the cupboard, or drink out of a mug, or beers in the garden behind the flower pots. We don't know what their relationship with alcohol is, because quite often they don't know what ours is because we don't talk about it. Right. And also, like, people say to me, oh, well, you were drinking a litre of vodka and I was never as bad as you. But I always say, like, it's how it makes you feel, right? Surely. If you're having no, exactly. If you're having a couple of glasses of wine a night and it's causing you to have poor sleep, or you don't remember saying that story to little Johnny, or like in the morning you wake up and you're lethargic and a little bit down, surely that's enough to look at it.
Yeah, exactly. And I interviewed Dr. Kimberly Mallet earlier in the year, and she went through the 11 signs of alcohol use disorder. And honestly, Dave, I sat there and my jaw was on the floor because I think I ticked off 9 of them. And I would never have. And she said mild alcohol use disorder is 1 to 3, moderate is 4 to 6, and severe is 7 and above. And I just considered myself, and I can quickly tell you them because it might be interesting for your listeners to hear. So number 1 is difficulty limiting our alcohol intake, so often having more than we intend to, tick. Number 2, physically craving alcohol. So, you've got home, you're feeling stressed, your body wants the alcohol. Number 3, we have withdrawal. So the next day we're feeling shaky, we're feeling nauseous, we might be feeling anxious. Number 4, we've built tolerance, so we need more to get the same effect. Number 5, we've put ourselves in a hazardous situation while drinking, so responsible for kids, driving, working, climbing a ladder, something like that. Number 6, it's creating problems with our friends or family. Number 7, we're neglecting responsibilities in order to be able to drink. Number 8, we've tried to cut back but haven't been able to maintain it. Number 9, a lot of our life is revolving around alcohol and we're prioritizing times that we can drink. Number 10, we're spending a lot of time thinking about drinking or recovering from drinking. And number 11, alcohol is causing mental or physical impact on us and we're still drinking.
That's scary.
Right?
Yeah. How many are we ticking away there? Do you know what I mean? Like,
I know.
It's important data though, isn't it, to look at that?
Yeah. So it's not about a number. It's not about going, well, he drank a bottle of vodka a night and I'm not that bad, so therefore I'm fine.
Yeah.
It's not a number. It's about what role is alcohol playing in your life? Because people that don't have a problem with alcohol, they don't think about alcohol. They don't have that little voice starting to come in at 3 o'clock going, oh, should I have a wine tonight? I said I wasn't going to drink tonight, but maybe I could have one tonight and not have one tomorrow. Like, they're just a take it or leave it drinker. And if you've got a problem with alcohol, it's taking up headspace, and that's the first clear sign.
Yeah. I mean, I always compare that to gambling because I don't gamble, right? So if you said to me, there's a horse running in the derby and put 50 quid on, and I won $1,000, I wouldn't be running back that day to put the grand on something else. I wouldn't probably bet for another, whenever. Like I don't care. I don't think about it. And that's how I look at someone who hasn't got a problem with booze. But when I was drinking, like, every day, it was like, oh, I had a right skinful last night. Really, I shouldn't drink tonight. But then I would be planning how I could drink, especially if I'd have had a skinful indoors and really on paper. I'll give you another example. It was in between Christmas. Like, there's that lull of 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4 days in between Christmas that it might be like the 27th to the 30th or something that really you've gone to town Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and really you should ease off. But I was always like, oh, well, fuck it, it's Christmas. So by New Year's Eve, it's like, hey. And then New Year's Day, I was feeling like that. And that's how you start your bloody year, feeling absolutely vile. So, yeah, it does make you think. And I know we got to a place where we did something about it. But before we go, what would you say to anyone listening to this who is still drinking, whatever level that's at? What would you say to them to encourage them to maybe have a rethink about their relationship with alcohol?
I think it's really helpful to do an honest, reflection on what are the positives and what are the negatives of my drinking. What can I recognize when I'm brutally honest with myself? Is it taking more than it's giving? And if it is, then give yourself the opportunity of taking a break and take 30 days off and see it as an experiment and gather data. And before you do that, assess out of 10 your sleep, your energy, your mood, your how you talk to yourself, what that inner landscape is like in your life, and then do that same reflection at the end of the 30 days. And then you've got real data points to assess, is alcohol giving me more or is it taking more? And this is, I think, the crux of it, Dave, is so many people in this modern world that we have. God, I sound so old. This modern world, but this social media world where it's so much about what am I presenting externally that we've stopped caring about what's actually happening internally. We're almost being detrimental to our internal inner world as long as our external world looks good to everybody else. And I don't give a shit about how the external world looks. I want to know that the women who work with me feel good on the inside, because that's what matters most. And if you have any kind of inkling that alcohol is stopping you from feeling good on the inside, then it's time to take a break and give yourself the opportunity to see how you feel without it.
Amen to that. Big time,
Amen.
Sarah. So let's wrap it up now. It's around an hour. Where can people find you?
So Instagram is a great place, which is just at Sarah Rusbatch, Rusbatch. My website is sarahrusbatch.com. My book is Beyond Booze, and the podcast is Stronger, Bolder, Wiser.
Fabulous. Well, thank you so much, Sarah, for such a fantastic, much needed interview, I think. I hope it's helped everyone, and I'll see you soon for the next episode. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you.